ladies and gentlemen. Today, the United Nations Alliance of Civilization is holding its 9th Global Forum on African soil. It is thereby giving a signal of continuity and universality, uniting everyone around the shared purpose, which is to foster the alliance of peace, and a common objective, which is to respond to the imperative need of living together in the name of the one humanity. That the alliance of civilizations should meet in Fez is perfectly natural. Did Morocco not have the privilege and the honor of being one of the founding members of the alliance? Is Fez not the spiritual capital of a kingdom steeped in history? It's Qarawiyyin University in Fez, not the oldest university of the world, the place where Muslim and Jewish scholars and even a pontiff completed their instruction. Today, in its Euro-Mediterranean University, not shaping a space of academic and intercultural dialogue between the two shores of the Mediterranean, Fez is the incarnation of a fruitful alliance of civilizations. That the alliance of civilizations should meet in Fez is also a privilege. After New York, Baku, Bali, Vienna, Doha, Rio, Istanbul, and Madrid, it was only natural that the Global Forum of the Alliance of Civilizations should convene on African soil. Is Africa not the cradle of humanity, the melting pot of civilizations, the pool of youth, and the promise of the future? For all these reasons and many more, I wanted the venue of this global forum to symbolize the dual meaning of your gathering in its essence, as embodied by Fez, as well as its scope reflected by Africa. It is my cherished hope that this present forum will lead to concrete results. I do not think it could be otherwise, given the importance of the subject of our awareness of its urgency. That is the meaning of a message I am sending to this 9th Global Forum of Civilizations of the United Nations. It reflects my confidence that this meeting will bring the added value expected by me and the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres. It also attests to the common determination to continue giving concrete substance to the excellent cooperation between the Kingdom of Morocco and the United Nations organizations. Today, we are walking down the path concerned of those who have worked and make sure the Alliance of Civilizations is both relevant and influent. I want to comprehend the United Nations, the High Representative of the Alliance of Civilizations, Mr. Miguel Angel Moratinos, for his resolve and commitment. The fearless minds which conceived the Alliance of Civilizations have built a platform for the future. Today, we are thinking of all those, especially Spain and Turkey, who have contributed to ensuring the sustainability and institutionalization of the organization as a model tribune for the promotion of understanding, trust, dialogue between cultures, religions, and civilizations. The ideals of peace which inspired me in 2004 are the same as those guiding us in this forum. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, the current context is marked by the resurgence of the very causes which led to the creation of the nations. Never before our civilization has been so exposed. Never before have living together come under a threat on a daily basis. Rarely has the other been perceived such as the level of suspicion or used to stir up fear and foment hatred. Radical positions are perpetuating the debate and cancelling the moderate voices. Religions are too often manipulated when they are not simply stigmatized. Populism is a rock in societies and inventing questions without answering them, except to brandish immigration as a scarecrow of an electoral weapon to turn migrants into scapegoats. Continents have always away from the wars and their forms of violence. COVID-19 signaled the surgence of withdrawal into oneself at a time when the crisis could have given rise to the firm belief in a common destiny. At a time when the planet is producing enough to feed all humans, food insecurity is looming large over the world. Terrorism feeds separatism, and it lurks in places where political stability slows down socioeconomic development. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, climate change isn't just a problem of the future. It has become a present-day trauma, particularly in Africa, as a vision of the world and peace as a rapport with the other, and that the alliance is a strong vector of peace. In fact, unlike the wars, we know the end, but not the dialogue is a success by essence against the conflict. Dialogue is always a positive promise, otherwise of a mutual shared knowledge. So dialogue, carried by dialogue, the alliance, and that builds the conditions of success. It's the dialogue that salvation will come, under the condition that this dialogue be inter-civilizational, that is to say, inclusive, and also worrying about humanity with all its components to understand the world in its plurality and act through multilateralism, non-vertical multilateralism, and incarnates the universal in its first meaning. That this dialogue is intergenerational, that's inclusive, and has all segments of humanity, and world in plurality acts through non-verbal materialism and modifies universal virtues, and the discourse of hatred are the ones that make peace. That this dialogue is intercontinental, meaning it should not be ethnocentric. I can speak of Africa, and for Africa, I can speak of the continent's rightful place in the concert of nations, not in the same backyard. I can speak of the treatment it deserves, a continent neither assisted nor left behind. I can speak of the need of Africa to have the partners it deserves and the partners that deserves it, one that is appreciated, and that is namely the demographic lung of the world, and with its planet's economic reservoir and its hopes. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a founding member of the Alliance of Civilizations, the Kingdom of Morocco has been involved in all of the organization's struggles. Firstly, for reasons that inseparable from its identity, Morocco is built around a model of openness, harmony, and synergy that has seen the convergence of the Arab model, Islamic Amazigh, and Sahara Hassani confluence, and that has at the same time been enriched by African, Andalusian, Hebrew, and Mediterranean traditions. Also, for reasons inherent to this commitment, the values of alliance, the ideals, and the paradigm that it promotes are always also the values of Morocco. These are paradigms. From the very first, Morocco has been committed to this basic policy. It has remained satisfactorily attached to it. Firstly, it has shown its commitment by promoting openness as a pillar of the culture of peace. My grandfather, His late Majesty King Mohammed VI, protected our fellow Jewish countrymen in the face of Nazi barbarism and against the brutal strictness of practices of the Vichy regime. During the reign of my father, Hassan II, turned the spirit of brotherhood between Moroccan Jews and Muslims all over the world. For more than 2 decades, I have personally been working to enhance and safeguard the Moroccan Jewish heritage and to cultivate a spirit of sincere communion between Jews and Muslims in a land of Islam. This bond makes Morocco unique. And with unquestionable consistency, we have shown again and again that the Kingdom of Morocco has made the choice to remain a land of tolerance, coexistence, and openness. Secondly, Morocco has also shown its commitment by living a religion as a vehicle of peace. As a commander of the faithful, all the faithful, I guarantee the free exercise of worship throughout the Kingdom of Morocco. I believe a religion should be protected against extremism, not a pretext for it. This is a conviction I have championed everywhere through the Kingdom's religious diplomacy. The Foundation Muhammad VI for African Ulema and the Institute Muhammad VI for the training of imams, murshideen and murshidat are meant to thwart the radicalism that is rampant to the gates of Africa and to promote a moderate, middle-of-the-road Islam. Conscious of that role, Morocco has the United Nations General Assembly adopt a resolution A73-328 on a combating hate speech, promoting interreligious, intercultural dialogue and tolerance. Co-sponsored by 90 countries, that resolution highlights the first plan of action on combating hate speech and promoting interfaith dialogue. I received His Holiness Pope Francois, who came to Morocco on a historic visit, during which we stressed the importance of seeing the 3 academic religions open up to each other in the framework of respect of otherness and understanding the other. With Pope Francois, we signed Al-Quds Appeal, which calls for the preservation of the Holy City as a gathering place for the faithful from those monolithic religions and a symbol of peaceful coexistence, dialogue, and mutual respect. Third, Morocco has demonstrated its commitment by working for development in broad sense as an ingredient of peace. Morocco is a key ally in fight against terrorism, a reliable partner in the fight against climate change, and a responsible actor in the management of migration. My country has been involved in all areas of the Alliance's action, from the consolidation of multilateralism to enhancing the status of young people and making them aware of their responsibilities, to empowering women and highlighting their role as actors in the promotion of peace and security. Mr. Secretary General, Ms. High Representative of the United Nations, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, politics speaks to citizens. Religion speaks to their souls. Dialogue to their civilizations. In all idioms, we must speak and embrace peace. This injunction stems from the hopes of past and future generations. At this very special moment in history, as we fight climate change and terrorism, as we seek to promote sustainable development and ensure water, energy, food security, in fact, development in general, we must go back to that which is paramount, namely living together. This is really no point in carrying major projects if we do not manage to go beyond the first link of the chain of living together in the name of a single humanity, which puts back human beings at its core. Mohammed VI, King of Morocco.
We've just listened to the royal message addressed by His Majesty Mohammed VI to the audience of the forum. And now we move on to the opening of the forum.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to you all at the 9th Global Forum of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations. I would like to invite the High Representative for the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, His Excellency, Under-Secretary General Miguel Ángel Moratinos, to deliver his remarks.
Excellencies, Secretary General, Eminences, Minister, authorities, participants, dear youth. Let me first express my all gratitude to the government and people of the Kingdom of Morocco, and particularly to His Majesty King Mohammed VI for his full support and leadership for organizing this 9th Global Forum of United Nations Alliance of Civilization. My dear friends, it has been 3 decades since the prestigious American political scientist Samuel Huntington delivered his famous lecture on the class of civilization. On October 19, 1992, at the American Enterprise Institute, the professor emeritus of Harvard and Columbus noted that the world politics, and I quote, was entering in a new phase, adding that the fundamental source of conflict in the new world will not be ideological or economic. He said, the great divide in humanity and the predominant source of conflict will be cultural or thus religious. His theory, as we say today, went viral. This year marks the 30th anniversary of Samuel Huntington's announcement. And today here in Fez, on the occasion of the 9th Global Forum of the United Nations Alliance of Civilization, it seemed appropriate to respond to this thesis and to defend today more than ever the need for a positive alliance of peace between the different civilizations of humanity. We should, in any case, highlight the wisdom of American political scientists in pointing out the complex nature of all conflict. International disputes are the product of a range of variables and not only of a desire for power and hegemony, although this is in the end the definite driving force to set any crisis in motion. It is also true that the emeritus professor identified cultural issues as an essential element of analyzing conflict. This cultural and religious dimension had not been regularly taken into consideration until then as one of the elements to be taken into account when seeking solutions to international mediation and negotiation processes. However, in the face of these elements of Huntington theory, there are multiple contradictions and questionable approaches. First, there is a lack of clear definition of the term civilization. In this sense, Huntington fails to properly define and distinguish between identity, culture, and civilization. It is true that in general, most analysts use this term interchangeably without specifying the differences and the nature of this concept. Secondly, the thesis refers to the clash of civilization in general, including all of them. However, Huntington identified the Islamic civilization as the main political and cultural adversary of the West. Unfortunately, this thesis is the one that attracted the most attention and the one that fatally announced as a chronicle of an attack foretold, to paraphrase Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the attack of the Twin Towers on September 9, 2021 in New York. The collapse of the Twin Towers changed the international agenda, and the Huntington prophecy was revealed in the Western world, believing that they had found their new enemy, Islam. Nevertheless, he practically ignored other greater civilizations, such as the Chinese or Indian or the indigenous civilization from Latin America and the cultural identity civilization of Africa. And I'm extremely happy today, here in Fez, and grateful that here in this forum, we can count on high-level delegation coming from China, India, Latin America, and of course from Africa. This is one of Huntington's most obvious mistakes, the desire to construct a divided and confrontational world in which the West must prevail and themselves itself from any attempt to lose its hegemony and power. It is this categorical affirmation that is criticized and rejected by the vast majority of analysts and experts. In short, international conflict cannot be the sole consequence of religion, culture, or civilization. It must be said bluntly, there is no class of civilization. There is a class of interest. There is a class of ignorances. Dear friends, it was this assessment that led the new appointed Spanish government after the terrorist attack in Madrid on March 11, 2004, to propose a totally different approach. The then president of the Spanish government, José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, who is with us today in Fez, thank you, President, for your vision and leadership. In his first address to the United Nations General Assembly in September of that year, proclaimed that faced with the thesis of a clash of civilization, the international community should establish an alliance of civilization. His speech was received with surprise and satisfaction as an innovative proposal within the political agenda of peace and security of the United Nations. Immediately after, the government of Turkey and its President Erdogan, joined and supported this initiative. Today, my friend, 17 years have passed since UN Secretary General Kofi Annan made the Alliance of Civilization an instrument of conflict resolution and preventing diplomacy. There have been many advances and achievements. In 2015, it received the final endorsement of UN when the General Assembly adopted General Resolution A69-312 in granting it the status of a UN entity. Its contribution to help create a more respectful and fraternal society have led it to develop a world series of projects and programs with a cross-cutting nature: migration, youth, education, media, and the role of women have been involved to provide the world societies with principles that should be incorporated as essential elements in all national government, as well in the regional and international organizations. After almost 2 decades of existence, the role and contribution deserve to be reviewed and made available to the new reality of the 21st century. As the current Secretary, Antonio Guterres, said in his address to the group of friends of the Alliance on September 29, 2020, and I quote, "In this context, the role of Alliance of Civilization has never been more relevant to our 2030 Agenda objective of building a more peaceful, just, and resilient societies based on human rights and dignity of all. We need to promote the condition where people of different identities, faith, and culture can live in harmony, enjoying the fundamental freedom." End of the quote. As we pointed out, no, we are not facing a clash of civilizations. The world of the 21st century is globally interconnected. We are one humanity facing multiple global challenges. The recent crises affecting the international community have shown us that there is no borders that can stop viruses and wars, where they occur in Europe or in any other corner of the world. They impact the entire international system. Paradoxically, a regional war, the war in Ukraine, has affected the peace and stability of the entire international order. Food prices and shortages, uncertainties about the supply and cost of energy, and the fragility of the financial system have once again placed the priority of the need to avoid greater evils, including nuclear Armageddon. The positive agenda of a peaceful and sustainable world is once again suffering the consequences of war and conflict. The world is once again becoming divided, and new walls of misunderstanding and confrontation are being built. A number of actors are speaking out and demanding a redefinition of the new international order. This new dialectic should not be seen as negative, provided that all parties understand that there is no alternative to a multilateral world, that accept and benefit from the plurality of actors, and that are all mobilized in favor of one humanity and peace and prosperity. This is the major challenge faced by the Alliance of Civilization. It's not a question of ignoring or not recognizing the existing of multiple cultures of civilization, an indisputable reality, but rather ensuring that all actors accept and respect each other and collectively seek to safeguard the planet and humanity. My dear friends, the real danger is that we are facing with new type of totalitarianism, a technological totalitarianism that wishes to totally control the behavior and action of human beings through political economic practices that led to the full surveillance of human beings. This led to turning citizens into mere consumers, where their freedom of choice or decision will be practically eliminated thanks to the new technology and the advance of artificial intelligence. There is unanimity that we have and we should invest in artificial intelligence. But my dear friend, above all, and most importantly, we need to invest more in human intelligence. Unfortunately, very little is being done in this regard. Here, let me quote Sir David Khalili. He said, "Common sense is not our common enemy. Yes, investing in human intelligence should be our main concern. It's common sense. A second totalitarianism moves in the social cultural world. The tendency of the main actors is precisely to create a uniform, flat, one-dimensional world where diversity and otherness are considered as negative elements that must be fought and eliminated. We are witnessing obsolete discourses that remind us of the past time when only one ethnic group or race could be defended. The discourse of hatred, this racist attitude, should have disappeared after the monstrosity of the Holocaust in the 20th century. It is in this debate that the alliance of civilization can and might find its new place and legitimacy. Dear friends, no, we are not witnessing a clash of civilization. What we are witnessing is a clash of interest and ignorance. No, there is no clash of civilization. What we are witnessing are clashes of a struggle for hegemony and attained zone of influence. On the contrary, yes, there is only one humanity. Yes, the challenges are global and call for global response. Yes, the youth of the world are demanding responsibility and action from us. They want a better world, a sustainable planet, a fraternal humanity. Yes, the alliance of civilization can precisely serve as a platform to facilitate understanding, comprehension, and respect of each other, culture and civilization, which in any case need each other in order to survive in the future. The alliance can and should be an initiative that study and discover the thousands of similarities and synergies that exist both at the philosophical, religious, and practical level among different cultures and religions, while at the same time it can help to distinguish and identify the differences. These differences should be resolved in an open dialogue and peaceful manner in order to find solutions and avoid them from being manipulated and used as source of controversy. In short, the alliance of civilization must become an alliance of civilization for peace. Recent development on the international scene indicate an extremely dangerous trend of confrontation between blocs. The alliance of civilization, by its conception, by its very will, is and can be the platform where bridges of understanding and cooperation are permanently maintained and built. Young Asians, Chinese, North American, Latin American, African, Russian, and European should talk to each other, respect each other, and seek shared solutions for their present and their future. It's not a question of renouncing the achievement of the various civilizations, including, of course, the Western civilization, but it's a question of recognizing the legitimacy of all those civilizations that were unable to defend their approaches and are now consider that the time has come to be able to demonstrate their cultural civilization on an equal footing. In this new distribution of the cards, certain rules must be maintained and reinforced, in particular the 1948 Declaration of Human Rights. This must remain the general framework accepted by all. Next year will mark the 70th anniversary of its adoption. In conclusion, my dear friends, 30 years after Samuel Huntington's lecture, we can proclaim without any doubt there has not been a clash of civilization. What is more relevant is that Professor Samuel Huntington, in one of his late articles, concludes by saying, and I quote, "We should all accept that there will be not a universal civilization, but on the contrary, a world with different civilizations that will have to learn to coexist each other." End of the quote. In short, the emeritus professor's ultimate advice is to learn to coexist with each other. It is true that Samuel Huntington is inspired by the traditional Western concept existed at that time, where concepts such as tolerance and coexistence were pronounced and considered as positive manifestation. Today here, in fact, we, the world citizens, should be able to express ourselves with a sufficient level of maturity and development and take a leap forward towards building a positive terminology and a political action. In the face of negative concepts and attitudes, we should defend a new positive vocabulary. In the face of defending tolerance, let us defend mutual respect. In the face of defending coexistence, let us defend living together, convivencia. In the face of defending minority, let us defend the equal right of all citizens. In the face of exclusion and separatism, let us defend inclusion and fraternity. In the face of only a dialogue of civilization, let us engage ourselves in an alliance of civilization and a collective commitment. This task can and must be developed by an alliance of peace. Thank you very much.
We are honored to have with us His Excellency, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres. I invite Mr. Guterres to deliver his remarks.
Excellences, chers et chers amis.
Excellencies, dear friends, let me first express my thanks to the government of Morocco and the people of Morocco for their hospitality. Morocco has always been a seat of fight against extremism, and therefore you are an essential and seat of this forum. I'd like in particular to express my thanks to His Majesty Mohammed VI for his engagement, for his commitment to the dialogue, to the defense of dialogue, tolerance, and diversity as a richness to our societies and our world. I would like to thank the High Representative Mauritanius for his action at the head of the alliance, and I'd like to congratulate us for the choice of Fez as a seat for the meeting. From its history and secular history, Fez is the real place to meet and engage a reflection on the state of our world. Excellencies, we see all around us a world in crisis. The forces of discourse and hatred find a fertile field for injustice and conflicts. There's a more difference between the rich and the poor, between the north and the south, between developed and emerging economies. The tensions, social and economic, are growing, and the number of increasing conflicts in Ukraine are destroying lives and destroying economies. Destroying the cost of life is touching the most vulnerable people. The trust towards the political leaders and towards self are disappearing. This loss of trust also leads to a destruction of values, to the state of the law, and also discourse of hate and disinformation, and which target women in particular and vulnerable communities. Intolerance and irrationality are an old demon. Anti-Semitism, sectarism, anti-Islamic persecution of Christians, and xenophobia of racism is appearing again. The heinous and destructive things are alimenting each other and lead to, while our climate is leading to irreversible destruction, which is a result of our inability to work together for the common good of all.
We know that to curb the climate crisis, we need to reach carbon neutrality by mid-century and urgently reduce emissions this decade. That is why at COP27, I proposed a Climate Solidarity Pact that combines the capacities of developed and emerging economies for the benefit of all. We know that to tackle global inequalities, we need to provide developing countries with the resources and support they need to invest in their future. That is why, at the G20 summit in Bali, I urged leaders to support an SDG stimulus for debt relief and restructuring for the Global South and investments across all the Sustainable Development Goals, from education and healthcare to eradicating poverty and realizing full equality for women and girls. We know that we need urgent action to prevent further instability and hunger from the Horn of Africa and the Sahel to Afghanistan, to Haiti and beyond. That is why the Black Sea Grain Initiative and efforts to ensure Russian food and fertilizers can flow to global markets are so critical to stabilize markets and lower food prices. And we know that to halt the proliferation of conflicts, we need to strengthen prevention and build the foundation of lasting peace. Excellencies, the what is not the challenge, the how is. How to secure cooperation, how to raise ambition, how to marshal resources, how to mobilize political will, how to catalyze actions at all levels, from the global to the local, and how to act in solidarity. The Alliance of Civilizations is helping, showing the way. You embody the core values enshrined in the United Nations Charter to practice tolerance and live together in peace with one another as good neighbors. You are giving life to vital United Nations frameworks, from the call to action for human rights and the strategy on hate speech to the plan of action to safeguard religious sites. You are promoting more resilient and cohesive societies by putting a spotlight on youth, education, media and migration, and the vital role of women as peacemakers. You are working to build bridges and help people move from conflict to collaboration. I particularly welcome your efforts to place youth at the center in communities torn apart by conflict. I am thinking of people like Magdalene Amoni from Uganda, who lost a family member to the Lord's Resistance Army. Today, she is helping former child soldiers integrate into their communities in the face of severe human trauma and mistrust. I'm thinking of people like Elsa Marn da Silva from India, who co-founded a platform that crowdsources and maps sexual violence and harassment. Her efforts are mobilizing thousands of young people around the world to break the silence and end gender-based violence. And I'm thinking of the work of people like Imam Mohamed Ashafa and Pastor James Wui, who used to lead opposing militias in Nigeria. Today, they are united in friendship and partnership to diffuse religious conflict. It is in examples like these that fill me with hope for the future. I am also grateful to religious leaders across the world who are joining hands to promote dialogue and interfaith harmony. The declaration Human Fraternity for World Peace and Living Together, co-authored by His Holiness Pope Francis and His Eminence the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Sheikh Ahmed El-Tayeb, is a model for compassion and human solidarity. We need this spirit more than ever. Together, we can build an alliance of peace that spans the global and the local to meet the tests of our time. If we recognize diversity as a richness, and if we invest in inclusion, and if we make sure that all of us, regardless of race, descent, origin, background, gender, religion, or other status, can live lives of dignity and opportunity. The Holy Quran teaches us that God created nations and tribes so that we might know one another. At this time of peril, let us take inspiration and stand together as one human family, rich in diversity, equal in dignity and rights, united in solidarity. Let's all do our part, and I thank all of you for your leadership and your commitment.
The co-sponsors of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations since its creation have been the governments of Spain and Turkey. I invite His Excellency, Mr. Mevlut Çavuşoğlu, the Foreign Minister of the Republic of Turkey, to deliver his remarks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mr. Secretary General, Mr. High Representatives, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and dear friends. It's a pleasure to address you at the 9th Global Forum of the United Nations Alliance of the Civilizations. Let me convey the greetings of my President Erdogan, co-initiator of the Alliance, together with then Prime Minister of Spain, Mr. Zapatero. I'm very happy that Mr. Zapatero is with us today, and thank you very much for your continued commitment and your support to your initiative and the Alliance, Mr. Prime Minister. Let me also thank our host, Morocco, and my brother, Nasser, for bringing us together here. With 158 members, the Alliance is one of the most widely supported initiatives of the United Nations. We welcome our Turkmen brothers as our new member. Turkey and Spain launched the Alliance of Civilizations nearly 17 years ago. We were convinced that we were doing the right thing. But even we couldn't have known all the time that this was going to be a timeless initiative. 17 years ago, we were in a different world. This may be the age of crisis and even war resulting from nation-state competition, superpower rivalry, and the major socio-economic upheaval. Yet, hate crimes, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, anti-Christian sentiments, xenophobia, separatism, and extremism continue to increase everywhere. Our work is not done. In fact, it is only beginning. Excellencies, dear friends, it is difficult to undo all the misperceptions, prejudices, and feelings of disconnect that we were built over generations. But we have to start from somewhere. In the meantime, humanity is confronted with the task to end human suffering as a result of these prejudices. Because discrimination, exclusion, and conflict often come a vicious cycle. One breeds the other. United Nations Alliance of Civilization is not a just good idea. It is a solid plan to work. Its action plan is built on 3 important lines of work. These are preventive diplomacy, mediation, and preventing and countering violent extremism. If even one of these pillars fall, there will be human suffering. With the alliance in place, the international community was able to take important steps together. This year, the General Assembly declared March 15, which is the anniversary of Christchurch attacks, as the International Day Against Islamophobia. In 2021, our plan of action to safeguard religious sites was endorsed by the UN General Assembly. And in 2020, High Representative Moratinos, my dear friend Miguel, was designated the first ever UN focal point to monitor anti-Semitism. I applaud these achievements, which give us hope to do more. Mediation, to which my country has been attaching major importance, proved its merit in the service of humanity. And Istanbul, the seat of the Istanbul mediation conferences, has been epicenter of this work. Here, let me thank Secretary General Guterres for his efforts on the Istanbul Grain Initiative together with my President Erdogan. And thanks to the initiative, grain prices went down at the historic level, and there was a global relief. Last week, again, together we succeeded in extending the agreement for another 4 months. Yet challenges remain as the war continues, so we will continue to work closely with the United Nations. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, to play a greater role, the Alliance needs to have the means and outreach. I welcome the first ever Global Forum meeting in the African continent with open arms. The opening of our Geneva office was an important step. Establishing the regional office for mediation, prevention and dialogue in Istanbul will be another milestone. Equally important are the steps to further strengthen our ties to the United Nations. Making multilateral cooperation stronger is critical to our work here at the Alliance. Dear friends, let me end my remarks with a quote from Rumi. Not the ones speaking the same language, but the ones sharing the same feeling understand each other. Thank you very much.
I invite Her Excellency, Ms. Pilar Cancela Rodriguez, Secretary of State for International Cooperation of Spain, to deliver her remarks.
Muy buenos días a todas y a todos. I will speak Spanish.
Dear Mr. Mauritius, ladies and gentlemen, authorities, excellencies, first I would like to transmit our congratulations to our former President, Mr. Zapateros, who is attending this meeting. It's a pleasure to see you all anew from a presidential level. It's a good thing that we are able to meet together, and what we missed was human and share spaces of interaction and also facilitate the work that we have been doing. Thanks to His Majesty Mohammed VI for the organization of this forum, and also to the government of Morocco for all the efforts that it has exerted. It's an honor for us to count on Mr. Secretary General of the United Nations. And thank you again to Fez, which is a welcoming city, a dynamic city, which has been an excellent choice to talk together, to discuss cohabitation. Because we're saying in this meeting how to get to humanity. This is the first time that this forum is taking place in Africa, and I think it has been an excellent choice. We would like to congratulate you for the choice of Africa, because Africa has been at the center of our priorities, and the Alliance will play a significant role in also. The agenda for this meeting also will take place, I'm sure this is a meeting that is going to be full of results which are up to our expectations. there are great protagonists in this dialogue: respect and dialogue. Globalization, immigration have made of our world an interconnected world, a multicultural one. However, fanatism and hate have led to too often to violence and terror. And one of our novelists has sometimes said that the contagion of prejudices makes the difficulty of makes things difficult. Which, in other words, as prejudices grow, things become more difficult. Our international agenda in itself complex. Therefore, we cannot allow for prejudices and discourse that will lead to pernicious effects and to revive negative situations past. The Alliance of Civilizations is an important instrument to avoid these conflicts and also facilitate the process of peace. This is the great value of this meeting, and this is why the alliance, since it's been co-sponsored by Turkey and Spain, has been able to get together representatives of different generations with the same objective, and this has led to the period of between 22 and 23. And has affected, exercised in Spain, where the diversity of creeds has had a very important importance in our history. We are convinced of the power of tolerance, dialogue, and respect, which are conditions for peace. Spain has developed a cartography for the religious places, which can be very important for the alliance and which will also be useful for protecting our cultural heritage. We would like to encourage the other countries to follow this example, particularly as this has been said by UNESCO. Conflicts and wars between and the errors that they constitute lead to pernicious effects and have negative effects on holy places. And this is why we are here, and our action plan alliance insists on youth, education, immigration, and the role of women for peace. Briefly then, I would like to give you some details concerning these aspects that we are going to debate: the cultural identity, common heritage, and shared values. We're going to talk about the continent, its past, but most important about its future. We will not be able to face this challenge without Africa, particularly in the case of vulnerable populations. The integration of women, which is often forgotten, I would say is often, always. I'd like to that the integration within the framework of our debate and the construction of peace is fundamental. The alliance is aware of this, and I'd like to underline the importance of women for this dialogue, particularly within societies which have been affected by situations of conflict. Spain, as you know, is a country which is within the connection between security and equality, and there will always be more women involved in this context. We have tried to, a decade ago, through the Med program for women within the Mediterranean, and we have tried to involve the African women, and this is why we are here to collaborate with you unconditionally. And of course, this will be carried out within the framework of this forum. we would like to underline the importance of youth for decision-making. Young men and young women are the actors for change in this world. It's the best investment that we can make for the future. It's important that we are able to listen to those who are our future, and also to count on people in Africa, where we have the biggest population of young people, and we would like to tell you that your voice has been heard and that we need this voice. It is essential that we can meet all these challenges, and that we can develop confidence. Multiculturalism should not be seen as a menace for the peace of states. It is an opportunity for solving questions which a state cannot solve on its own. It also assuming common responsibility and providing a common response. Spain would like the United Nations, and particularly wishes the United Nations, and particularly the Secretary General, to all the actions that are being carried out through Peace for Peace and a global alliance for peace, so that we can all meet and meet these inequalities. And the Alliance of Civilizations is an important instrument of prevention, and the quality of our response must be must be developed by the international community. That would lead that involves the adoption of multiculturalism, and within a framework that is undeniable. We think that we are in the right way. It's the way of our forum, and it's the forum of the alliance, and it's in this way, in this path, that we meet to do good. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the esteemed speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly remain in your seats. The next segment of the program begins now. The Voices of the Wise, Pathways to Peace and Living Together in Mutual Respect.
Our work today is a defining moment. Hate mongers continue to drive a wedge between peoples and civilizations. Societies are divided across ethnic and religious lines. Racism, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, anti-Christian bigotry, Islamophobia and discrimination based on religion or belief are on the rise, often leading to a vicious circle of extreme violence and terrorist attacks.
In these troubled times, the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, UNAOC, is a unique and inclusive platform for member states, the private sector, youth, civil society, and the media to exchange views and commit to dialogue and new partnerships. Created in 2005 as a special initiative of then United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Kofi Annan, and co-sponsored by the governments of Spain and Turkey, UNAOC feels an urgent and pressing need to fill a policy gap in the governance of cultural diversity, which is constantly being threatened by growing divisions between societies, the rise of violent extremism, the polarization of attitudes and world perceptions, and frequent manifestations of intolerance, racism, and bigotry.
The United Nations Alliance of Civilizations is closely aligned with my own priorities and the vision outlined in the prevention agenda. The Alliance is not a feel-good. It is fundamental to peace, to security, to sustainable development, and to the world we need to build. The role of the Alliance of Civilizations has never been more relevant to our 2030 agenda objective of building more peaceful, just, and resilient societies.
As our world faces a global human crisis, as the pandemic exposed deep-seated inequalities, we are reminded every day of our common fragility and our interconnected fate. There is no alternative to standing together in unity and solidarity in inclusive societies. With its motto, many cultures, one humanity, the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations was created to embrace and promote cultural diversity, religious pluralism, but most of all, mutual respect.
There is no peace, no development, no security, and no human rights without accepting and embracing diversity as a richness rather than a threat.
To help reduce cross-cultural tensions and build bridges of understanding, we continue to develop and implement flagship programs with the aim of facilitating the global conversation on the challenges and opportunities of living in a landscape of diversity.
Our project activities are fashioned around 5 priority areas: education, youth, media, migration, and women as peace mediators.
Through the Intercultural Innovation Hub, we connect people and cultures, empower grassroots organizations by enabling them to reach their full potential, and elevate and scale up social innovations by offering holistic and lasting support.
Through our Youth Solidarity Fund, we support youth-led organizations around the world that foster peaceful and inclusive societies through seed funding and capacity building support.
With our Young Peace Builders Peace Education Initiative, we equip young people with skills to enhance their positive role in issues of peace and security and in preventing violent conflict.
Through the Plural Plus Youth Video Festival, we empower young media makers to explore the issues of migration, diversity, social inclusion, and the prevention of xenophobia, as well as sharing their creative vision with the world.
With our fellowship program, we select young civil society leaders and professionals from Europe, North America, the Middle East, and North Africa for 2-week exchange trips between different countries where they engage with local actors and key stakeholders to learn about intercultural dialogue.
Through Eden, empowering dialogue and interfaith networks, we provide young religious leaders and young media makers with a peer-to-peer learning space and build their capacity to prevent sectarian violence and counter terrorist narratives.
Through Sport for One Humanity, we elevate the universality of sport and its unifying power by strengthening the capacities of sports-based grassroots initiatives that promote sport as a tool for fostering diversity and inclusion.
With News Generation Against Hate, we empower young people to combat misinformation, hate speech, and stereotypes by promoting intercultural and interreligious understanding in the media.
Through Youth Waging Peace, we aim to create a whole community movement towards sustainable peace through youth-led activities.
With Digital Games for Peace, we support youth in designing games that can be used as pedagogical tools for intercultural dialogue and social and emotional learning to prevent violent extremism.
As a global convener, UNAOC continues to advocate for the promotion of interreligious and intercultural dialogue. To this end, UNAOC continues to strengthen its cooperation and expand engagement with other UN agencies, multilateral entities, faith-based organizations, youth-led grassroots movements, civil society, the private sector, and other key stakeholders to promote a culture of peace, global citizenship education, the youth, peace and security agenda, the prevention and countering of violent extremism, as well as combating hate speech and racist rhetoric. It is through mobilizing concrete action from an international umbrella of sincere collaboration with state and non-state actors that we continue to foster cohesive and inclusive societies.
While we continue to respond to the United Nations agenda through our programming and policy advocacies, it is clear that we still have a long road ahead of us. Our work is far from done. Amid the current crisis, we need to work even harder towards building bridges between culture and civilization. We need to strengthen dialogue and understanding are the basis for cohesive, resilient, and inclusive societies. Today, more than ever, diversity is the reality that informs human life. Diversity means embracing pluralism in nation identities, beliefs, faiths, and tradition. Our cultures are tied to one another. Fundamentally, we are all global citizens of the world. We are many cultures, but we are one humanity.
Thank you very much. A big shout out to Unaoc team. And ladies and gentlemen and distinguished guests, please kindly remain seated, and our next session will begin now. Voices of the Wise, Pathways to Peace and Living Together in Mutual Respect. Starting off with a voice from Africa, Her Excellency President Aminata Touré, the former president of Senegal, the former prime minister of Senegal.
Thank you very much, former Vice President. That's a big difference there. Je voudrais m'exprimer en français.
I would like to speak French. We're here in Morocco, and I would like to congratulate the Alliance of Civilizations for this moment of reflection. Coming from Africa, beyond Sahara, I would like to say that when we talk about alliance, let's say there is some sort of disagreement between us. Allow me not to be very diplomatic. Of the civilizations have been dominated in the name of civilization of other civilizations, and will still this past with us. I think it's high time we got rid of this. To do so, the debate on slavery first should be dealt with. The matter of reparation is not very extremist. It's maybe for this reason when African countries ask for the rights be increased at the level of the monetary fund, the debate on colonization and important resources taken from Africa on behalf of civilizing missions of other civilizations have been oppressed. So this problem, it's high time that we got rid of this. I think that we must do this because as your neighbor somewhere who owes you money, but every morning invites you to a cup of coffee, you don't go there with enthusiasm if at the origin this problem, you don't talk about this problem. So the alliance of civilizations should in particular be interested in these matters which are causing us send a strong message for the countries that have been colonizers can say that we didn't do well. In fact, we regret, and we'd like to apologize for that. We didn't hear that enough. I think it's very important for Africa, where 75% of the population is less than 35 of age. They are educated, they understand, and such a message will bring together the civilizations, the Western civilization and African civilizations that we see they carry cultures. No, they also are about science, architecture, and progress, because there were civilizations before colonization, but this is not documented enough. And it's up to historians and researchers in Africa to document this and to show, as our former president Leopold Sédar Senghor, when it's a matter of giving and taking, African civilizations have contributed a lot, and like the structure in Egypt and the contribution of Nubia to Egyptian civilization. Let's look at the achievement of Zimbabwe, Mali, and Ghana. All these are civilizations that contributed to the universal civilization, not only in terms of culture, but science and contribution to humanity. For this, it is important for this problem that is still with us, which we don't talk about, but that we need to deal with so that we can restart on strong and equal basis and just and fair, because these must be built upon mutual respect. But this mutual respect starts with the recognition that slavery and colonization were, and Africa, I think we need to say it, Africa has suffered the most. And we also need to say that our brothers from Indians did not resist. And this continues to be done in a climate of challenges and defiance, and calls for more solidarity and the recognition the wrongs in the history done to our continent. And we still have consequences concerning racism. And I think that an open dialogue, sincere dialogue among all the partners with the African continent, this will allow us to restart this dialogue on new basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Ms. Aminata Touré, former Prime Minister of Senegal. And now I invite to the floor His Excellency, Mr. José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, the former Prime Minister of Spain.
Muchísimas gracias.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Secrétaire. Thank you for your course. Thank you for being here with us, because we're here as men and women in the world who who believe in the mission of the Charter of San Francisco, in peace and respect between nations and people and civilizations and cultures and flags. Thank you very much to José Marinos. Mr. Marinos belongs to the men and women who have an infinite desire for peace. The universe, perhaps an infinite universe. But maybe the person who is better understood to explain the universe was Albert Einstein, who wrote that the life of each individual has meaning only if he contributes to everything, to the fact that everybody who is a person in the world is nice, the best brain of the world, a militant for peace. And he did understand better than anybody else the universe, this large and vast universe. The Alliance of Civilizations was born from this spirit of peace. The word for peace, for dialogue, for understanding, respect for living together. Some people wonder in what the Alliance of Civilizations consists. To institutionalize this dialogue, to understanding between all civilizations and to do this with a historical project, the strongest project of the humanity, of the United Nations with no differences. This forum today, which is taking place in Fez, Morocco, dear Mr. Bourita, Minister, in this welcoming country and this city which is full of history and spirituality, this leads us to a commitment, a firm commitment those of you who believe in progress, those of you who respect all civilizations, all religions, because they have the same deepness, and that is to respect others, to embrace cohabitation. This commitment is nothing else than peace. Peace is our mission. Today, we received sad news of the death of Paulo Milanese, and whose songs has a very important poem, which says that we cry for all the absence, for all the unjust victims of the wars that we know, that nobody understands. Violence, the use of force, brutal force, the war crimes, or is war not a crime? Humanity has always had a capacity to progress. We have been able to abolish slavery, perhaps after the Holocaust, the abject pages of history that we need to recognize. And that was the phase that preceded colonialism, which has caused so many disasters. Yes, humanity has seen the abolition of slavery. And to say here today in Fez at the university that the university that was at the origin of disbelief, where women for centuries have not been able to access the university and to have access to education. Today, there are more women in the universities in the world, and this has taken place within a period of a century. Not long ago, there were men and women who fought against slavery and who thought perhaps this was impossible, and many of them have lost their lives in this fight. Some have fought for women who have been discriminated against in the history to have access to education so that they can live in peace and in freedom. And this also impossible utopia. I think that this future generation will see the abolition of violence and war as an instrument of international relations, as an instrument of politics, and an instrument of power, and see the expression of ideas. What characterizes our species, and we have proved this often, is that we don't have limits in our moral capacity for progress. Our moral capacity for progress. This has been demonstrated in the history up to now. We have always been able to have noble aspirations, people who have made of generosity the value of words which are above any inspiration. Mr. Secretary General, we must double our efforts for peace. To all governments which hear us, to all societies which hope to take a moment and stop this this growing speed, to take time to mobilize all ourselves for peace. I'd like to congratulate Turkey and Mr. Erdogan for all the efforts that they have deployed, and I'd like to invite more people to have more voice, more determination. Any war is likely to lead to pernicious effects. This is the lesson that we have learned. What is it that separates us from peace? It's will, a firm will, force, decisive force, a moral, political, and the fact of not accepting destruction that we observe every day. This is what's the most difficult. We can remember what happened in the Middle East, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria. 900,000 people died, and these people died, and mostly people from the civil society. It's simply because of the conflict between Israel and Palestine. Mr. Secretary General, this moment must happen. It's important that we get to a time when all this is ended and Palestine must have a state. We need to recognize the state of Palestine. It's important, it's essential. As we are in Africa at the moment, Africa represents hope because it's the youngest continent, the humblest continent. And it's important that remember that we can expect more from humble people. And this is here in Morocco, in Fez, where this Mediterranean country and this African country with the European influences, Spain joins itself to contribute to the promotion of peace. It's important that we ask more from ourselves, from our generation. When I was young, we used to fight for a better world. And the new generations, the younger generations, are wondering whether this world that we know will continue because of all the challenges of wars and nuclear. I'd like to launch an appeal and recall the risk of difficult moments where we are. We cannot consent and accept war, Cold War, or accept a war that may lead to nuclear destruction. There are continents like South America which are about to know the end of all conflicts and which are living in peace. Africa suffers from the effect of wars, but it's a young continent marked by hope, and we need to ask great powers to think in a humble way, with humility, to think about the future of these continents, which don't want to be superpowers, but which want their people to live with dignity, to make an appeal to great powers, to Europe, to the United States. I don't know, dear friend Miguel Angel, whether we respect to all religions, to languages, uses, traditions, will be able to get us to this peace, the peace that Kant used to talk about. I know, and I have no doubt, that the alliance of civilizations has already left its imprint, that it has made the first step towards the eradication of violence, a step that leads to global dignity, which is required by the progress of our species, to move towards life that has been given to us so that we can pass it on to other generations. Dear Secretary General, I know that you have persisted, and your humanism, your deep humanism, and all the people who are here are ready, and millions of people are also ready to follow you, to follow the United Nations and Turkey and Spain, and all the countries that are committed for this 21st century, which is being defined. Today, in the 21st century, we hope to open an area of peace and of abolition of poverty, and that the power is not explained by military power, but by density, moral density that we defend. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, the former Prime Minister of Spain. I now give the floor to Her Excellency, Madame Vaira Vika-Friberga, the former President of Latvia and the co-chair of the Nizami Janjavi International Center.
Your Excellency, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency High Representative Martinos, representatives of the Kingdom of Morocco, ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, friends. The Nizami Janjavi International Center is one of those supranational, infranational, international bodies where people come together to engage in dialogue precisely of the kind that the Alliance for Civilizations is meant to promote. And I'm happy to be here today to represent all my colleagues who come from parts of the world that have not been very much in the public domain, many of them from what used to be the huge body of territory and inhabitants, which was the Soviet Union. And it's only after it came finally to its well-deserved demise in 1991 that many nations were able to recover their independence and to pursue the age-old traditions, to revive the right to use their own national language, to produce their own literature, to contribute to civilization. It is an honor to be here in the city of Fez, a millenary city of high culture, intellectual advance, reflection, and artistry, as well as the decorative arts. A remarkable place of high culture but at the same time a high culture that rests on equally millennial traditions of popular culture. And we have already heard today reference to the fact that not just the achievements of those civilizations that we call high civilizations of high culture, who have builded marble palaces with gilded doors, and who have dressed in silks and velvets and covered in jewelry, but also the Aborigines of Australia, who survived in extreme dryness and scarcity of natural resources, or the Tuareg or the Tuarega of the Sahara, or the tribes of the Amazon, who were able to build civilizations and create languages and poetry and literature, oral literature, in the depths of a jungle full of dangers on every side, and who were not able, for material reasons, to develop gilded palaces and marble halls, but who did have wisdom, for instance, in terms of medicinal plants and survival, that modern-day humanity is going back and trying to recover before they get destroyed. The populations of the subarctic, who have survived in extreme cold temperatures, have also created oral literatures, customs that are worth noting and preserving. All of us need a lot to learn the breadth and depth of civilization such as it has been achieved across the world. But there's one orthogonal dimension to the technical or intellectual or artistic achievements of humanity, and that is the ability to empathize with other human beings, the ability to feel the other as one would feel oneself. And humanism is something that is distinct from civilization in its sense of high achievement, be it intellectual, artistic, or technical. Humanism is something that comes from the heart and from the soul. Religions have tried to educate vast populations to elevate their souls in some way or another. Too often, it has become a rigid sort of carcass within which people were forced to obey external demands and external appearances of obeisance rather than a felt contact with a divine spark that resides in the human soul. The slavery that we heard referred to by our distinguished representative from sub-Saharan Africa, Europe is not foreign to it. My country was invaded as the last pagans in Europe in the 12th century after an edict, a holy war declared against the last pagans in northeastern Europe, at the same time as the crusade against the Albigenses for purely ideological reasons was also being waged in the south of France and north of Spain. We were conquered in the name of Christianity, but the Latin people were reduced progressively over the centuries, deprived of their rights, and reduced to serfdom, and serfdom which achieved its highest level when, after the Great Northern War, my country was incorporated into the Tsarist Empire, as was Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, parts of Poland at least, Ukraine and Central Asia, and the Caucasus. We see in the current status of and the structure of the United Nations, a status of what the world was like after the Second World War, with the winners being part of the Security Council and holding special powers over the rest of what the United Nations can do. We see that this structure by itself is paralyzing the United Nations and preventing it from achieving many goals, such as the rights of people to determine their own fate and future, the rights of sovereignty and territorial integrity, the respect for international treaties, both bilateral and multilateral, and the demand for spheres of influence. We have open demands that we hear in the world about spheres of influence that inherited from an imperial past somehow should be revived, and that some countries, rather than others, have more rights to decide what kind of civilization one lives under. And ladies and gentlemen, in the Nizami Ganjavi International Center, we come together, Palestinians, Arabs, and Jews, Christians of many denominations, representatives of countries of different origin and culture and language. But we do engage in dialogue, and I think that the Alliance of Civilizations is meant to do precisely that on the grander scale and on a formal scale. I encourage you all, both formal high representatives, high officials, representatives of governments, to continue on that path. We have a long way to go to truly realize the ideals of a world where every human being, man and woman, girl and boy, dark or light in skin, from a long history of civilization to the credit of their nation, or one that is just beginning its path to nationhood, that indeed this respect for every human being and every group of humans who have decided of their own free will and their own determination to choose their common path together and to build their country and their version of civilization together, we should respect their right to do so. And nobody, even those in possession of nuclear arms at their disposal, should be allowed to threaten the whole world with annihilation simply to realize their manias of grandeur and their need for self-expression at the expense of the suffering and the inhumanity imposed on others. Peace is a lovely thing, but when barbarism and inhumanity knocks at the gates, then one has to stand firm, and people must have the right to defend their right to existence, their right to their identity, their right to their language, and their right to their sovereignty. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Madame Vaira Vaiki Friberga, former President of Latvia and the co-chair of the Nizami Ganjavi International Center. I now invite His Virtue, Sheikhul Islam Allah Shakur Pashazadeh, Chairman of the Caucasus Muslims Board in Azerbaijan.
In the name of the Almighty Creator, it's my great honor to convey the greetings of the people of Azerbaijan and the head of our state, His Excellency President Ilham Aliyev, to His Majesty King Mohammed VI, to the people of Morocco, to the prominent state, scientific and religious figures, and all valuable participants of the global forum of the Alliance of Civilizations. At present times when
الوقت الحاضر عندما أصبحت قيم السلام والتعايش مهمة للغاية فإن
living together as one humanity is especially remarkable. I would like to express my blessings to the first forum organized with high support and hosting of the Kingdom of Morocco, with the personal participation of the United Nations Secretary General, His Excellency Mr. Guterres, and with the valuable efforts of the High Representative of the Alliance of Civilizations. Allah, the Almighty, addresses as in the Quran, in the Holy Quran, O mankind, indeed we have created you from male and female, and made you people and tribes that you may know one another. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. The coexistence of different cultures is a gift of the Supreme Creator that helps us get to know each other. Distinguished participants, the challenges of the modern era are imposing serious tasks on humankind. Regretfully, the ideological and practical challenges that hinder international stability and security, including the facts of xenophobia, religious and ethnic intolerance, and increasing on a global scale. The proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and rising military rhetoric increases the nuclear threat. The world community must say no to national, racial, and religious intolerance, hate speech that incites aggression and violence, and manifestations of radicalism under the guise of religion, freedom of speech. Cases of insulting the sacred religious values and attributes must be strongly condemned. Obviously, the source of danger is not religion, but the misuse of the religion for practical purposes. Distinguished participants, the Republic of Azerbaijan has restored its territorial integrity recognized by the world community in accordance with the international law and the United Nations resolutions. Acts of vandalism against our cultural and spiritual heritage were committed in our territories during the 30-year-long occupation period. Now, rebuilding works are being carried out in the liberated territories. Our cultural and religious monuments are under restoration. Azerbaijan calls for peace and economic progress in the region, calling for peaceful neighborhood. Multicultural values and tolerance meet support of the state in the multi-ethnic and multi-professional Azerbaijan, well known for its hostility, historically existing traditions of tolerance, and accepting ethnic and religious diversity as its national wealth. The year of multiculturalism, the year of Islamic solidarity, the Baku intercultural dialogue process, peace of culture campaign initiated at the level by our country serve human. To solve global problems, it is necessary to refer to universal moral values along with international legal norms. It is commendable that important work is being done on various platforms to improve cooperation of religious and political figures for the sake of peace and Islam. Namely G22 Interfaith Forum, the Interreligious Forum of Council of Europe, as well as the Human Fraternity document signed by Pope of Rome and the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Ibn Bayt. Distinguished participants, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers of the forum for their kind invitation and give my support to all the initiatives of our event, aiming to build an alliance of peace and coexistence all over the world. I am confident that FAIR's Global Forum will make an important contribution to the creation of environmental or mental trust worldwide. Inshallah, may the peace of God be on you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. His Virtue Sheikhul Islam Allah Shakur Pashazadeh, Chairman of the Caucasus Muslims Board in Azerbaijan. I now invite His Excellency Mr. Amr Moussa, former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Egypt and the former Secretary General of the League of Arab States, to deliver his statement.
In the name of Allah, the most merciful, Mr. Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Minister of Foreign Affairs in Morocco, Mr. Representative of the Alliance of Cultures Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to participate